All right, this is Jennifer Woods, and I'm going to be going over my student teaching midterm. So first, I'm going to talk about my first observation with my supervisor. The lesson plan for this observation was the beginning of trigonometry, so the students were introduced to a lot of new material. Therefore, a lot of it was more direct instruction. But I did give students structured notes for them to take during the direct instruction. So he said my strengths during this lesson was I had a very clear explanation of pi over 4. I created a very organized worksheet, and that the lesson plan that I gave him for the class period was very detailed, so he was able to follow along with what I was doing very easily. I always look for opportunities to call students to the board. So that means I would give them an example problem and I'd ask a student to come up and present their work to the class. And then I provided great differentiation of instructions. So after after presenting students with material, I would show them 3 different ways they could solve it. So students would have the option, do they want to draw a picture? Do they want to do it with numbers? And then I had a good use of resources around the room, so I would use everything around me to teach the lesson. There are 3 whiteboards. I utilized them all. And great classroom management. I would ring the bell and wait for students to get their attention as opposed to speaking over them. And then my areas of growth for this observation. I need to stand in the back of the room when students share their work. And we talked about a lot of this, most of my areas for growth during my collaboration with Dr. Lawson. So I needed to stand in the back of the room when the students share their work. Typically I was standing in the front, so I was able to hear them, but I realized the students in the back couldn't. So coming to the back of the room, listening to the students, I was able to tell them, okay, you need to project your voice because the students in the back cannot hear you. And then I need to give them more wait time. Typically, I wouldn't wait very long. I would just ask the question, and then if no one was responding, I'd immediately go to the next topic. But I need to give some more wait time and encourage more students to volunteer. Typically, the students that are comfortable to volunteer are the more high-achieving students. The problem, I believe, I typically encourage more students to come to the board, but due to the fact with all the parent signatures and the lack of students with the parent signatures, I had to be very selective in this case with who was coming to the board. And then to provide exit slips to complete the class. In this class session, I just completed it, but he said that it would be great if I could check for understanding at the end of the lesson. So providing an exit slip, I can look over and see what students understood and what they didn't. All right, in observation 2, for this observation, it was kind of a little bit more difficult because he emailed me the night before that he was coming into the class. So I originally thought, me and my guide teacher discussed that we were going to do a juxtapose it, but the next day when I came to class, she recommended that we change the activity to a scavenger hunt, which to me, I've never been that big of a fan of just because I feel it's very unorganized. But my guide teacher did suggest it because the students had been sitting in their seat a lot, and I believed they should get up and, walk around the room, instead of always expected to be sitting in their seat. So I created a lesson for him, and we ended up changing it last minute. So he said my strengths, though, in the scavenger hunt and for the scavenger hunt, what it was is students, I put different word problems up on the board, and students had to go around the room and solve the problems. So I needed to use wait time as opposed to talking over students. That was a strength. I was clear with my explanation and didn't just give them the answer. So at the beginning of class, students had the option to ask questions on their homework, and I always would explain the whole problem as opposed to just telling them it was the answer. I drew pictures to have students understand the concept when explaining, because in this lesson, they were really working on radicals, and coterminals, being able to see that on the board on the unit circle. And I had good energy and circulation around the room. He said I was very positive and uplifting. And then he loves the use of the whiteboards. I try to utilize it, and I try to have kids use them because they can erase really easily, and when they're able to erase, they're immediately they immediately can correct their work. So what I need to do for growth is I need to provide a better step-by-step instructions for scavenger hunt would be more efficient. In this case, it was kind of more relaxed. He suggested that next time I make sure every kid has a group, and then they get, I assign them where in the scavenger hunt I want them to start to create more organization. There was inconsistent engagement during the scavenger hunt, mainly because kids are walking around the room and I can't hear the conversations that they're having throughout the room. More structure to the activity, which is what I had mentioned before, assign groups to specific problems. And then do not turn your back to students while helping other students. That was an issue I was having because the scavenger hunt was around the room, this problem. So when I helped a student with one problem, I had my back faced towards the rest of the class. And then that the students took too long to transition between activities. So after the scavenger hunt, they were giving a worksheet to practice for their test. And a lot of students didn't know about that worksheet, so I had to consistently come in and remind them. So it took them a long time to go from the scavenger hunt to the worksheet. And then, so collaboration with my guide teacher for all of these lessons is after school. This is a new topic, collaboration with my guide teacher. So after school, every day we would discuss the lesson plan for the following day. A lot of times that would change, but we were consistently talking about it. We would plan lessons together. This was a little bit more difficult because we had a co-teacher and a lot of our students had IEPs, so we had to be more cautious about what we were choosing with the students. But we came up together with what we felt would help them the most. And then we worked with the Algebra 2 team. So every Monday at lunch, me and my guide teacher would go with the Algebra 2 team, talk about kind of the lesson throughout the week, what their ideas were, what our ideas were, and we kind of collaborated with them to kind of discuss what our lesson was going to be throughout the week. So now I'm going to talk about the collaboration with my teacher, with Dr. Lawson. So in the first observation, we kind of talked for an hour, and we really talked about direct instruction and exit slips and the importance of exit slips in the classroom, and how beneficial they can be for me to understand what students are learning. That was a big topic. In observation number 2, we talked about 30 minutes. We kind of just talked about how unorganized the scavenger hunt felt and how I really need to work on, creating a more organized structure if I'm going to do a more loose type math activity, having students walk around the room. So he said, we kind of talked about ways that I can improve that. And then I felt very complimented. He said my content knowledge was really great. He said I knew exactly what I was talking about, and he could tell that I really knew my math. So I felt very, I really liked that comment. It made me feel really good. And last, my self-reflection on my classroom management, lesson planning, and planning instructions. I will say that in my opinion, I could always do better with lesson planning, but working and being in school, I probably didn't do as well as I could if I was a full-time teacher, and that was my only focus. So I do feel like I lacked a little on the lesson planning. But planning for instruction, working with my guide teacher helps a lot. She has so many great ideas, so it's great to collaborate with her, and I feel like me and her collaborate very well together. As for my classroom management, I feel like it has improved a lot. When I first started, I was constantly all over the place. I would get nervous and just, kind of forget all the material. I kind of didn't know how to quiet the students down, but now I've developed a really nice routine where students will come in, they know what's expected of them due to, I pass out slips, warm-up slips when they come in so they can sit down, start their warm-up. I made it very clear how I want them to act in the classroom. So they come in, they know to be quiet when I talk, and I use a bell and stand in the same spot. So they know, okay, when she's standing in this spot, we know to be quiet. And they also know how important it is to me for them not to talk while I talk. And I feel like because I've made it very clear to them, they're very understanding when I'm speaking to not talk over me. So overall, I feel like my classroom management has really improved, but I can always get better. High school students are chatty, and it's trying to figure out what routines help them the best. And that's it.